There are moments in life that feel like they belong to a dream, or perhaps more accurately, a nightmare. You're living your life, going through the motions, and then a single, impossible detail appears and shatters the illusion of reality you've so carefully constructed. For Dr. Anya Sharma, that moment came on a Tuesday, a day so ordinary it was practically forgettable. She was a woman who dealt in facts, in diagnoses, in the cold, hard logic of medicine. Her world was one of certainty and control, and she liked it that way. She had built her life with intention. A thriving dermatology practice in a leafy, affluent suburb of Los Angeles. A beautiful home with a garden she tended with meticulous care, and a small circle of friends who knew her as Anya, the smart, elegant doctor who always had a logical solution for everything. But there was one part of her life that was a locked room, a history she had sealed away with a heavy iron bolt. Her childhood. It was a past she had fled, leaving behind a small, dusty town in the Midwest and a name she had shed with the finality of a snake shedding its skin. She was born Annie, a name that felt too simple, too childlike for the woman she had become. The memories of that time were a blur of rural landscapes, old-fashioned dresses, and a secret that had been buried so deep she no longer felt its weight. Or so she thought. That Tuesday, as she was leaving her office, her phone rang. It was an unknown number, a 310 area code, which was strange. Most of her professional calls were from landlines or familiar contacts. She answered, a hint of professional fatigue in her voice. Dr. Sharma's office, she said. A pause. A breath on the other end of the line. The kind of pause that isn't silence, but a living, breathing thing. Then, a voice. A soft, almost gravelly voice. Neither male nor female, old nor young. It was a voice that seemed to exist outside of time. Hello, Annie, the voice said. Anya's heart, a muscle she knew intimately, seemed to skip a beat, a mechanical error in the perfect machine. She hadn't been called Annie in over 30 years. Not since she had packed her bags and left for college, never to look back. The name was a ghost, a whisper from a life she had systematically erased. I think you have the wrong number, she said, her voice tight, a defense mechanism snapping into place. My name is Anya. The voice on the other end chuckled softly, a sound that was both chilling and strangely knowing. Oh, I know your name is Anya now, but I remember when you were just Annie. Little Annie who used to climb the old oak tree by the creek. A shiver ran down Anya's spine. She hadn't told anyone about that tree. It was a private memory, a secret place she had retreated to as a child. A place only she and her older brother, Leo, knew about. And Leo was gone. The voice continued, its tone shifting to a gentle, almost conspiratorial whisper. Happy birthday, Annie. I hope you got your favorite chocolate cake. Anya froze, her hand gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. Her birthday was tomorrow. Not just a random day, but her actual birthday. How could a stranger, a voice from an unknown number, know that? She felt a wave of nausea, a primal fear she hadn't experienced since she was a little girl. It wasn't just the knowing of her birthday. It was the combination of that knowledge with the use of her childhood name. It was a violation, a chilling invasion of the carefully guarded fortress she had built around her past. She hung up, her hands trembling. Her mind raced, a frantic search for a logical explanation. A prank? But who would know these details? A former classmate? Unlikely. She had severed all ties. A relative? She had no living family she was in contact with. The voice wasn't her father's, or her mother's. It was a stranger's. She drove home in a daze, the cheerful California sun feeling like an insult. The meticulously tended garden, the tasteful furniture, the quiet hum of her smart home. It all felt flimsy, a stage set that could be torn down in an instant. The call had cracked her world wide open, a fissure that went straight to the heart of a secret she had buried long ago. A secret about a summer, a brother, and a truth that was darker than she had ever dared to admit. The phone rang again. She stared at the unknown number. She had to answer. She had to know. Who was this person and what did they want? The voice on the other end was a ghost, and it was calling her home. Anya stared at the screen, the number a digital brand burning into her memory. The ringing was relentless, a persistent taunt. She took a deep breath, her logical mind fighting a losing battle against the cold tendrils of fear. Couldn't be a coincidence. The name, the birthday, the oak tree, it was too specific. She answered. The voice was back, its soft timbre now laced with a knowing sadness. You shouldn't have left, Annie. We miss you. The words were like a physical blow. Who is this? Anya demanded, her voice a thin thread of desperation. What do you want? The voice didn't answer directly. Instead, it painted a picture, a memory so vivid it felt like she was standing there, a child again, in the humid air of that long-ago summer. Remember the fireflies, Annie? And the old swing set behind the barn? We used to sit there for hours, watching the stars, counting them until they blurred into a milky river. Anya's breath hitched. Fireflies and the swing set. It was a memory she had tucked away so deeply it was almost a dream. It was a memory of her brother, Leo. Leo, with his unruly mop of brown hair, a smattering of freckles across his nose, and a smile that could light up a room. Leo, who was her protector, her confidant, her entire world. He was 5 years older, and to a young Annie he was a god. He taught her how to skip stones across the creek, how to find the perfect four-leaf clover, and how to tell the stories in the constellations. That summer, the summer she turned 10 and Leo was 15, was the last time she had ever truly been happy. It was also the summer that had ended it all. The memory was a scar, a faded, white line on her soul. But the voice was tracing it with a malicious finger, making it bleed anew. He never stopped talking about you, you know? The voice continued, its tone now a mournful sigh. He always said you were the one who understood, the one who believed. Anya's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't just a stranger. This was someone who knew Leo, someone who knew the secrets they had shared. But how? And why now? For years, she had built a narrative around her brother's death. A tragic accident, a sudden, inexplicable tragedy that had shattered her family and led to her escape. But the voice on the phone was hinting at something more, something darker. It wasn't an accident, was it, Annie? The voice whispered. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Anya's mind reeled. Couldn't be. She had told herself that story so many times. She had convinced herself it was the truth. It had to be the truth. The alternative was too horrible to contemplate. She hung up again, her hands shaking so violently she had to put the phone down. She paced her immaculate living room, the polished hardwood floor a silent witness to her unraveling. She felt a phantom presence, a ghost from her past that had finally found her. The memories came flooding back, not as distant dreams, but as sharp, painful shards of glass. The last day she saw Leo, the argument with their parents, the look on his face, a mixture of defiance and sorrow, and then the police sirens, the hushed whispers, the grief that was so overwhelming it felt like a physical weight. The narrative of an accident had been a comfort, a way to survive. But what if it was a lie? What if her parents had been hiding something? Or worse, what if she had been hiding something from herself? Anya collapsed onto her sofa, her head in her hands. The call wasn't a prank. It was a message from someone who knew the truth, a truth she had buried under a mountain of carefully constructed lies. She thought of her perfect life, her perfect career, her perfect name. It was all a facade, built on the shifting sands of a foundation she had tried to forget. The phone rang again. She didn't have to answer to know what the voice would say. It would speak of fireflies and secrets, of a brother lost and a past found. She was no longer just Anya Sharma, the successful doctor. She was Annie, the little girl who had a secret she was too scared to face. The truth was out there, and it was calling her name. The calls became a relentless siege. They came at all hours, from different numbers, each one peeling back another layer of Anya's carefully guarded past. They were no longer just whispers. They were direct, chilling accusations. "You saw him, Annie?" the voice said one night, the words a cold, hard bullet. "You saw what happened, and you didn't tell anyone." Anya's breath caught in her throat. She had told no one, not a soul. It was the single most protected secret of her life, a memory so painful she had locked it in a mental vault and thrown away the key. The voice knew. It knew she had been there, that she had witnessed the moment her life and her family fell apart. The narrative of an accident had been so much easier to live with. It absolved her. It made her a victim of fate, not a co-conspirator in silence. The memories of that night came flooding back with a new and terrifying clarity. It was a hot, muggy August night. Leo and she had been fighting with their parents. Leo, always the defiant one, had just told them he was leaving for good, running away to chase some vague dream of becoming a musician in the city. Their father had yelled, their mother had cried, and Annie, a terrified 10-year-old, had retreated to the shadows, watching the family she knew and loved implode. Later that night, she had heard a noise outside. She had crept out of her room, found the back door ajar, and followed a trail of muddy footprints to the old creek. She had seen him, Leo. He was arguing with someone, a shadowy figure. The moonlight was a thin, silver film, and she couldn't make out the details, but she heard the raised voices, the final, desperate words. And then, a splash, a struggle, silence. She had stood there, frozen in fear, a helpless witness to a crime. She didn't know who the other person was. The figure had disappeared into the darkness, leaving her alone with the silent, still water and a terrible, suffocating knowledge. She had run back to the house, shaking, and the next morning the police had come. They had found Leo's body downstream, tangled in a cluster of reeds. They had ruled it an accidental drowning. She had said nothing. Her parents, too consumed by grief, had never asked. The silence had become a pact, a mutual agreement to pretend it was an accident. It was the only way they could all survive. But the voice on the phone wasn't letting her survive anymore. It was forcing her to confront the ugly, terrifying truth she had buried. He was with someone, wasn't he, Annie? The voice whispered, its tone now almost triumphant. And you know who it was. You've always known. A cold dread settled in Anya's stomach. She didn't know. The figure had been a blur, a silhouette against the night. But the voice was so sure, so insistent. It was twisting her memory, making her doubt her own sanity. Was it possible she had blocked out a detail, a face? The voice was playing a cruel game, a psychological torture that was slowly and methodically dismantling her life. Her focus at work was gone. She started canceling appointments, unable to face her patients, unable to pretend she was a composed, rational doctor when her inner world was a maelstrom of fear and guilt. Her friends called, concerned, but she pushed them away, afraid to let anyone in, afraid that her secret was a tangible thing, a dark cloud that would envelop anyone who got too close. She was alone, trapped in a house that felt less like a home and more like a tomb for a life she had lost long ago. The phone rang again. This time she didn't hesitate. She picked it up, her voice a raw, desperate plea. "Who are you?" she screamed into the receiver. "What do you want from me?" The voice was silent for a moment. Then it spoke, and its words were not a question, but a command. "Come home, Annie. There's someone who wants to talk to you. Someone who wants to tell you the real story." The voice gave her an address. Not her old house, but a dilapidated, abandoned cabin deep in the woods, a place she barely remembered from her childhood. It was a trap, she knew it, a final, terrifying confrontation with a ghost from her past. But she had no choice. The ghost had taken over her present. She had to face it, no matter the cost. She had to go back to the source of her fear, back to the place where everything had gone wrong. The voice had promised her the truth. And after all these years of living a lie, the truth was the only thing she had left to cling to. The drive was a journey not just through miles, but through decades. The California sun gave way to the hazy, green expanse of the Midwest. Each familiar landmark was a jolt to Anya's system, a cruel reminder of the life she had so desperately tried to leave behind. The air grew thick with a humidity she had long forgotten, and the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves filled her nostrils, a smell that was both comforting and terrifying. She found the cabin. It was exactly as the voice had described. A crumbling ruin, its windows shattered, its porch sagging. The woods that had seemed so magical and full of life in her childhood were now a suffocating, menacing presence. She stepped out of her car, the silence a heavy, expectant blanket. She walked toward the cabin, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was a doctor, a woman of science and logic, and yet, here she was, standing in front of a ghost story she had to see through to the end. The front door creaked open with a groan of protest. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with dust. A single shaft of light from a broken window illuminated a figure sitting in an old rocking chair. It was a woman, her back to Anya. She was frail, her hair a shock of white against a worn floral dress. Anya's breath caught. The figure turned slowly, and in the dim light, Anya saw a face she had last seen in a photograph decades ago. A face etched with the lines of time and sorrow, but unmistakable. It was her grandmother, a woman she had been told had died years ago, a woman she had loved dearly, a woman she had thought was a ghost from a past she could never revisit. But the voice on the phone was the same. Her grandmother's voice. The kind, familiar voice that had once told her bedtime stories and baked her favorite chocolate cake. "Annie," her grandmother said, her voice raspy with age but still holding that same strange cadence. "You came." Anya stood there, stunned, her mind a chaotic jumble of disbelief and recognition. But you're dead," she stammered. Her grandmother smiled sadly. "That's what they told you, isn't it? What they told everyone." She motioned to the seat opposite her. "Come, sit. This time I told you the rest of the story. The part your parents didn't want you to know." Her grandmother began to speak, and as she did, the final, terrifying pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Her grandmother hadn't died. She had been sent away, institutionalized by Anya's parents after she had threatened to expose the truth about Leo's death. The person Leo had been arguing with that night wasn't a stranger. It was their own father. The argument had been about Leo's dream of leaving, about his refusal to take over the family business. It had escalated into a physical fight, a shove, and a desperate final splash. The family had conspired to call it an accident, to protect their name and their reputation. Her grandmother had been the only witness who refused to be silenced, and so they had silenced her instead. Anya listened, tears streaming down her face, not just for the lie, but for the life she had been forced to live because of it. Her parents, the people she had believed were grieving victims, were in fact co-conspirators in a cover-up. The very foundation of her existence had been a lie. Her grandmother looked at her, her eyes filled with a profound sorrow. "I'm sorry, my sweet Annie," she said. "I'm so sorry they did this to you. I've been trying to find you for years, trying to get to you. Took me a long time, but I finally got out. I had to tell you. I had to free you from this burden." The voice, the birthday, the childhood name. It had all been a desperate attempt to reach her, to break through the walls she had built. A final act of love and a plea for justice. The story was over. The truth was out. Anya stood up, her body trembling with a mixture of shock and a strange, quiet sense of peace. She had come to a horrifying conclusion, but she was no longer a victim of the unknown. The ghosts of her past were no longer whispers. They were a tangible, living reality. She looked at her grandmother, a woman who had given up her freedom to save her, and she knew what she had to do. The lies had to end. The truth had to be told. The journey had begun with a phone call, a whisper from a stranger, and it was ending here, in a dilapidated cabin, with a truth that would change everything. The camera slowly zooms out, leaving Anya and her grandmother in the quiet, dusty cabin. The next time a strange number calls, don't ignore it. You never know who's on the other end, or what secrets they might be holding. The past isn't always gone. Sometimes, it's just waiting for the right moment to find you. If the story has left you on the edge of your seat, just imagine what else we have in store. We'll be back soon with more chilling tales, more secrets uncovered, and more mysteries to solve. So, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single second of the suspense. We'll be watching,